Joni Geldenhuys is looking relatively composed going through Sabat.
I have always loved this section of the track.
Renzo Scott is looking for ways to improve their consistency. Renzo Scott has some work to do, as that 126.783 is only good enough for 9th.
That's not a bad time, but I am sure they can improve further on that.
Joni Geldenhuys is up -0.34. Joni Geldenhuys will be happy having put themselves into 5th in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. I'm sure they can find a little extra in there.
Joni Geldenhuys is driving through Castrol.
Spectators near here can smell the smoke wafting from nearby grills.
Richard Reshka is trying to find that extra performance.
They'll need to put together a perfect lap, hitting every apex and pushing the car to the limit without going over it.
Richard Reshka appears focused and prepared driving through Volkswagen.
There's not much better than sitting near here and watching the cars speed by.
Safety cars deployed. Get ready.
It looks like
Get
Tyler
ready.
Scott is getting.
Get
As
ready.
Tyler Scott
Going
completes their
green.
outlap, they will be hoping they have given themselves enough space on track to fully attack for their first flying lap. Tyler Scott is looking relatively composed going through Castrol.
There's a spot near here open for the spectators.
JP Brand is looking for ways to improve their consistency.
Well, Lucy, they'll need to find those extra tenths of a second by pushing just a little bit harder on the braking and carrying more speed through the corners.
JP Brand is driving through back straight. Sean Olivier is trying to find that extra performance.
Every driver needs something different, Lucy. Some drivers excel when they push harder, while other drivers benefit more from relaxing and being in a flow state.
Sean Olivier will be happy having put themselves into 3rd in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for them to improve further on that. Sometimes trying too hard makes you slower. They need to drive smooth and smart.
It's clear that Tyler Scott is pushing their car to the very edge of traction on this qualifying lap.
They certainly are. This is shaping up to be a great performance by Tyler Scott.
Tyler Scott appears focused and prepared driving through Castrol. Sean Olivier is on their outlap.
This is the moment they've been preparing for. Let's see if they can execute.
Sean Olivier is looking relatively composed going through back straight. Impressive display by Richard Reshka, currently sitting in position 5. They've set a competitive time, but the question remains whether they can push even harder to secure a better starting position.
Spot-on analysis, Lucy. Richard Reshke has positioned themselves well in 5th. It's now crucial for them to maintain their focus and defend their position in the upcoming race.
JP Brand has secured a respectable 2nd in the qualifying session. This is a great spot to use as a launchpad for a strong race performance.
Couldn't agree more, Lucy. JP Brand has positioned themselves impressively in 2nd. Now, they need to build on this foundation and strive for an even better race result.
JP Brand is driving through Sabat and is up -0.11.
All we can do now is wish JP Brand luck as they continue their way to start, finish.
What a performance from Richard Reshka. They currently occupy 5th on the grid. It's a good spot for now, but other drivers are trying their hardest to put in a better time and push them down the order. Richard Reshka is driving through Sabat. A solid qualifying performance by Sean Olivier, positioning them in 3rd at the moment. The question now is whether they can make further progress and challenge the frontrunners.
You're absolutely right, Lucy. Sean Olivier's current position of 3rd reflects their strong qualifying performance. Now, they'll need to strategize and capitalize on this starting position.
Sean Olivier appears focused and prepared driving through Volkswagen. Currently in 2nd, Richard Reshka has displayed promising speed during the qualifying session. The real test lies in whether they can convert this performance into a higher grid position.
Great analysis, Lucy. Richard Reshke has shown excellent pace to secure 2nd. Now, the focus shifts to whether they can use their track position to their advantage in the race.
Richard Reshka is looking relatively composed going through Malmesbury Straight.
I have always loved this section of the track.
There's a little bit of wind in the air today here at Killarney 36 Pits International Raceway, as we're getting ready to kick things off. Richard Reshka will begin the race from the 2nd spot on the starting grid. And in the 3rd position, it's none other than JP Brand. On the 4th grid slot we have Robert Stoltz. Starting from the 5th position on the grid, we have Jean-Olivier. Joni Geldenhuys is lining up 6th. Starting from the 7th position, Jamie Nichols will need to navigate through the field to challenge for the win.
They would have liked to be higher up, but that's not going to stop Jamie Nichols fighting their way through.
Caden Scott is placed in 8th. From the middle of the pack, we have Philip Van Staden in 9th place on the starting grid. The lights are out and it's go time.
Maintaining a safe distance while still pushing for position is a delicate balance. Experience and composure will be vital in these opening moments.
This is going to be one hell of a race. I can already feel it.
With this motley bunch of drivers, there is bound to be drama. I just hope we don't miss it.
The drivers are jockeying for position. Richard Reshka will be looking to get off to a good start and consolidate their position. As we watch the drivers fight it out in the first lap, I can already feel that this is going to be an epic race. Every lap is an opportunity for JP Brand to learn just a little bit more to shave a few tenths or hundredths off their times. It's a steady race for Joni Geldenhuys so far. They haven't made any mistakes, and they are maintaining their focus. A great pass for Joni Geldenhuys as they pick off other drivers and move up the field. Meanwhile, JP Brand has lost ground.
Go, 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 that's what we want to see.
Looks like JP Brand is really pushing it to the limit. They're taking those curbs aggressively, but that can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. It's all about maintaining that fine line between speed and control. One important aspect here is choosing the right braking points. JP Brand needs to be precise to avoid overshooting and losing valuable time.
Looks like we might have a great battle starting here between Tyler Scott in 7th and Jamie Nichols. It's been tense with a gap of only 0.3 seconds. Three cars in perfect formation, creating a moving train on the circuit. They're using the slipstream to gain an advantage, but that's not always enough. Oh, this is getting intense. Caden Scott is just behind Jamie Nichols.
A misjudgment by either driver could result in a close encounter of the tire barrier kind, and that's one handshake they'll want to avoid.
It's an intense battle for position as Jamie Nichols tries to outmaneuver Caden Scott. This is edge of your seat racing. Seems like Jandre Bucas is getting in range of Peter Geldenhuys. In racing, anything can, and usually does, happen, especially in such an epic showdown.
That's right, Richard Reshke is determined to pass Danny Van Ruyen and secure a higher position.
Superb driving from Richard Reshke, who with that overtake has gained a position in the race. Oh dear, Richard Reshke has dropped down to second.
That's got to be frustrating. But Richard Reshke is a skilled driver, and they have what it takes to battle their way back up the field.
The intensity is off the charts as Robert Stoltz hounds Jamie Nichols. Both braking update. Looks like that's a mistake from Danny Van Ruyen. This could be costly. It's neck and neck. The closest battle we've seen in a while. Joni Geldenhuys wants to close that gap with JP Brand.
If they get too close, they might end up taking the paint off.
Robert Stoltz is holding 7th, but Caden Scott is right on their tail.
It's not over yet. Caden Scott is right on Robert Stoltz's tail, and if they can find just a little bit of extra speed, they might be able to make a move.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled as they push for every last bit of speed.
You can see that car bouncing around as they ride the curbs. It's a risky move that could end in disaster.
The fans are on the edge of their seats. It doesn't get any closer than this.
I remember being in a similar situation during my racing days. Robert Stoltz must stay focused and wait for the perfect opportunity to overtake.
The gap between Caden Scott and Robert Stoltz is razor thin as they vie for 7th in this nail-biting contest. This is what high-octane racing looks like. Tyler Scott is breathing down the neck of Caden Scott, not giving them any room to relax. A brilliant maneuver from Tyler Scott, who has just moved up the field. Look at the way the drivers are hugging those corners. It's like they're on rails.
Speaking of rails, did you know that the first racetrack was built on a railway in 1896? I bet those drivers were chugging along.
All joking aside, I bet they were. Things have come a long way since then, haven't they?
Definitely. It's amazing to think about the technology that goes into these cars now. I mean, they have more computing power than some countries.
Braking update. Looks like that's a mistake from Danny Van Ruyen. This could be costly. It's a battle of wills out there, with Caden Scott trying to outsmart and outmaneuver Tyler Scott. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Situations like these often lead to a dramatic finish. Peter Geldenhuys is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely, it's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. That's where experience and skill come into play. Peter Geldenhuys needs to focus if they want to make a move and pass Robert Stoltz.
Things are heating up as Jandre Bucas tries to close the gap to Peter Geldenhuys.
I would not be surprised if they get this pass completed soon.
While Peter Geldenhuys is not under immediate threat from Jandre Bucas, they still need to stay focused and avoid any errors. Any slip-up could cost them their position. The race is heating up as Jandre Bucas in 11th closes in on Peter Geldenhuys. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight. Fantastic move from Jandre Bucas, who has just gained a position. Anyone who says that Simspeed Motorsports is not the best racing club on the planet is clearly insane. The quality of driving we're seeing out there on the track is absolutely phenomenal.
I couldn't agree more. It's like these drivers were born to race. They're weaving in and out of traffic, taking corners at unbelievable speeds, and making it all look effortless. It's clear that they've put in the time and effort to hone their skills.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Sean Olivier trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Richard Rushka. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. Robert Stoltz is running ninth. They are trying to catch Caden Scott.
The gap is 0.3 seconds now. Robert Stoltz is going to have to work a bit harder to close that gap with Caden Scott.
It seems like Robert Stoltz is pushing. They are on for recording their best lap so far this race. Let's talk about tire degradation. John, how does it affect the car's handling and what do drivers need to do to adapt to the changing conditions?
Tire degradation can significantly impact handling, Lucy. As the tires wear, the grip reduces, and drivers need to adjust their braking points, cornering speeds, and throttle application to maintain control of the car.
It's a thrilling pursuit as Robert Stoltz is right behind Caden Scott, keeping the pressure on for 8th place. It's a tale of two drivers right now, with Robert Stoltz gaining places and Caden Scott losing them.
Absolutely. Robert Stoltz is showing great pace and determination, but they can't get too confident. There is still plenty of challenges ahead.
It's a battle out there, each driver trying to outsmart and outmaneuver the other.
Caden Scott is so close to Robert Stoltz that if this were a dance floor, they'd be doing the tango.
You can feel the tension in the air.
The drivers are all focused, putting everything on the line for a chance at victory, pushing themselves and their machines to the limit.
And let's not forget about the incredible machines themselves.
Absolutely. It's amazing to think about the kind of engineering and innovation that goes into making these vehicles. But it all comes down to the drivers, who have to be able to handle the power and speed. It's going to be thrilling seeing how this race turns out.
The tension is building as Sean Olivier trails behind Richard Rushka. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Richard Rushka is pushing to maintain the lead, while Sean Olivier is working to close in and challenge for the position.
It's going to be tough for Sean Olivier, as Richard Rushka seems to have found their rhythm. But anything can happen in racing, and we've seen Sean Olivier pull off some impressive moves before. I'm excited to see if they can make it happen again.
It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Caden Scott, who is currently in P9. But Robert Stoltz is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from Caden Scott.
Absolutely, Caden Scott in 9th will need to be patient and carefully work to reduce that gap without overdriving it, as they can't afford to take unnecessary risks and risk an off or damaging their car. Let's see if they have what it takes to get back into the game here.
Sean Olivier is placed 3rd at the moment.
Definitely Lucy, but they can't afford to get complacent. They have to keep pushing hard to stay in the...
Braking update. Looks like that's a mistake from Danny Van Ruyen. This could be costly. Well, it doesn't look like Sean Olivier is going to be much of a threat to anyone soon, let alone Richard Rushka. Good news for Sean Olivier, the gap to Richard Rushka has decreased. It's now down to 0.9 seconds.
This is where the race gets... Both drivers will be pushing to the limit to gain the advantage.
Things don't seem to be going JP Brand's way in this race, as that's a big gap they'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here.
They certainly aren't going to be close enough to mount any kind of challenge soon unless it's down to a mistake from Sean Olivier.
Looking at the lap times, JP Brand is not currently on pace with Sean Olivier. Maybe they'll get a chance to see where they can improve.
Hopefully JP Brand can find some of that time they are losing and get it back.
The delta between Sean Olivier in third and Richard Reshka remains over a second, but Sean Olivier is not letting up. They're pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap. There's 25 minutes left in this session to make that happen. We are used to seeing some hard-fought but clean racing here at Simspeed Motorsports. I'm expecting to see nothing different here today as this race unfolds. It looks like JP Brand is pushing hard to catch up to Sean Olivier. That's not a small gap, but JP Brand has what it takes to challenge for the position.
It's a nail-biting race for sure, with both drivers showing incredible skill and determination. But Sean Olivier is not going to give up the position easily. This is going to be a battle to the very end, with JP Brand in P4 doing everything they can to catch up.
The crowd is on the edge of their seats as Sean Olivier in third chases after Richard Reshka. The delta is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Sean Olivier needs to find a way to close the gap.
This is where experience comes into play. Richard Reshke has been in this situation before and knows how to defend for position, but Sean Olivier is hungry for success and won't give up easily.
It's looking good for Robert Stoltz, sitting in 8th.
Absolutely, and they need to keep driving with determination to stay in that position.
Robert Stoltz is in the flow, putting in their best laps so far. And we're back, where the drivers are showing us some incredible skills.
Indeed, Lucy, it's always exciting to see these skilled drivers operating such fantastic machines on amazing tracks.
The race is heating up as Sean Olivier in third closes in on Richard Reshka. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight.
That's right, Sean Olivier in third knows they have to push to the limit if they want to catch up. But Richard Reshke is no slouch, and they're going to be pushing just as hard. It's a battle of skill and will out there.
It's a battle of wills out there, with Philip Van Staden trying to outsmart and outmaneuver Caden Scott. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Situations like these often lead to a dramatic finish.
Indeed, the anticipation is high as Philip Van Staden tries to reel in Caden Scott. But Caden Scott is not making it easy, maintaining a consistent pace. Philip Van Staden needs to find a little extra speed to bring the fight to Caden Scott and move up the field.
The tension is building as Sean Olivier trails behind Richard Reshka. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Richard Reshka is pushing to maintain the lead, while Sean Olivier is working to close in and challenge for the position. The gap between Sean Olivier and Richard Reshka is getting smaller.
This is what racing is all about, hard-fought battles with as much determination as respect, between friends and enemies alike.
You know, John, I've always wondered, how do racing drivers stay so cool and collected under such immense pressure?
Well, Lucy, it comes down to mental strength and training. Drivers often work with sports psychologists and practice techniques like meditation and visualization to help them stay calm and focused during high-pressure situations.
It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Sean Olivier, who is currently in P3. But Richard Reshka is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from Sean Olivier. It looks like Sean Olivier is making a move. The gap to Richard Reshka is now down to 0.4 seconds. As the race settles down, the drivers are really going at it.
It's like watching a high-speed game of chess. One wrong move and it could be game over. But these drivers are masters of their craft, always thinking 3 steps ahead.
That's right. And with the way they're maneuvering those cars, it's like they have superpowers.
It's almost like they have the power of flight. But instead of flying, they're speeding down the track like rockets.
I wonder if they have any spare rocket boosters for sale. The delta between Caden Scott in 9th and Robert Stoltz remains over a second, but Caden Scott is not letting up. They're pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap. There's 20 minutes left in this session to make that happen.
It's going to be tough for Caden Scott, as Robert Stoltz seems to have found their rhythm. But anything can happen in racing, and we've seen Caden Scott pull off some impressive moves before. I'm excited to see if they can make it happen again.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Peter Geldenhuys trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Philip Van Staden. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts.
It's a nail-biting race for sure, with both drivers showing incredible skill and determination. But Philip Van Staden is not going to give up the position easily. This is going to be a battle to the very end, with Peter Geldenhuys in P11 doing everything they can to catch up.
This is what racing is all about. Two fierce competitors pushing each other to the limit. It seems like Richard Reshka is struggling. Their last lap time was a bit off the pace of Sean Olivier.
It will be interesting to see if Sean Olivier can keep outpacing Richard Reshke.
I love being here at Killarney 36 Pits International Raceway. What an awesome place to be witnessing these titans of the track battle it out.
Indeed, Lucy, what a magnificent sight and sound. I love listening to the roar of these engines. Let's just listen for a moment.
The crowd is on the edge of their seats as Caden Scott in 9th chases after Robert Stoltz. The delta is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Caden Scott needs to find a way to close the gap. It's all about consistency for Tyler Scott, who is currently 7th.
That's right, they can't afford to make any mistakes or let up in their performance. Every point counts in this championship.
As they speed through start-finish, Caden Scott is relentlessly pursuing Robert Stoltz in a high-stakes battle for position. This is where the skill and experience of the drivers really come into play. Sean Olivier will need to stay focused and keep pushing, even when the gap seems insurmountable. It's not over until the checkered flag drops.
This is where experience comes into play. Richard Reshke has been in this situation before and knows how to defend for position, but Sean Olivier is hungry for success and won't give up easily.
It looks like Robert Stoltz is pushing hard to catch up to Caden Scott. That's not a small gap, but Robert Stoltz has what it takes to challenge for the position.
That's right, Robert Stoltz in 9th knows they have to push to the limit if they want to catch up. But Caden Scott is no slouch, and they're going to be pushing just as hard. It's a battle of skill and will out there.
The race is really heating up. Sean Olivier is hunting down Richard Reshka with everything they've got. Sean Olivier needs to find some speed, or maybe get more consistent. John, they have just put in a slower lap than Richard Reshka. Robert Stoltz has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with Caden Scott. I expect their only hope at this point is that Caden Scott makes an error. We got a close battle as Sean Olivier closes in on Richard Reshka. It looks like we might get a battle between Sean Olivier and Richard Reshka. Big gains for Sean Olivier as they move up the field, leaving Richard Reshka behind.
Yes, but Sean Olivier can't rest on their laurels. They have to keep pushing to consolidate their position.
It doesn't seem like things are going to plan for Robert Stoltz as they have a big gap ahead of them to close at this point in time. This is a thrilling battle as Richard Reshka edges closer to Sean Olivier in their fight for P2.
We'll have to wait to see if Richard Reshke can use the draft to their advantage, or if the lack of downforce will hinder their progress.
You know, John, as a former racing driver yourself, can you give us some insights into what goes through a driver's mind during these quieter moments in a race?
Sure, Lucy. During these moments, drivers often take the opportunity to assess their race strategy, monitor their car's performance, and plan their next move. It's all about staying focused and finding the right time to strike.
Every move counts now as Richard Reshka works to reel in Sean Olivier and overtake for P2. The action is heating up here as Sean Olivier is in second, defending from Richard Reshka, who is only 0.3 seconds away.
That's right, Sean Olivier is showing some great form and it looks like Richard Reshke won't be able to catch up, barring any mistakes.
Stop the press. Joni Geldenhuys has pulled into the pits. Richard Reshka is on a mission, chasing Sean Olivier who's desperately trying to stay ahead. Well, hold on a moment. Joni Geldenhuys is in the pits. Oh, this is getting intense. Richard Reshka is just a few car lengths behind Sean Olivier.
Richard Reshke is looking to close the 0.3 second gap and make a pass.
Things are going according to plan for Jandre Bucas, who is currently 12th.
Definitely, but they can't get too comfortable. There are plenty of other drivers who are gunning for that position, and Jandre Bucas has to keep pushing to stay on the pace.
It's a close race between Richard Reshka and Sean Olivier in second.
It's going to be a close one. Richard Reshke will have to push hard to create an opportunity.
And Richard Reshka has just won the place from Sean Olivier.
Absolutely, Lucy, but there's still a long way to go in this race, and Richard Reshke can't afford to get complacent. They have to keep driving with intensity and focus.
A solid performance from Sean Olivier, who is holding down second.
Yes, but they have to keep their focus and drive with intensity. There's still a long way to go in this race.
It's a battle of wills out there, with JP Brand trying to outsmart and outmaneuver Richard Reshka. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Situations like these often lead to a dramatic finish.
Absolutely, JP Brand in fourth will need to be patient and carefully work to reduce that gap without overdriving it, as they can't afford to take unnecessary risks and risk an off or damaging their car. Let's see if they have what it takes to get back into the game here.
A strong showing from Caden Scott, who is currently 7th. Impressive stuff from Caden Scott, who has managed to pull away from Robert Stoltz, leaving them choking in their exhaust fumes.
That's exactly what Caden Scott needed to do.
Braking development. Jamie Nichols is pitting. This is what separates the best from the rest. These drivers are demonstrating their racecraft, searching for any weakness to exploit. It's a true test of skill.
Couldn't agree more, Lucy. This wheel-to-wheel racing is what fans live for. The determination and
Wait, it looks like Jamie Nichols has been called into the pits. The tension is building as JP Brand trails behind Richard Reshka. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Richard Reshka is pushing to maintain the lead, while JP Brand is working to close in and challenge for the position.
indeed, the anticipation is high as JP Brand tries to reel in Richard Reshke. But Richard Reshke is not making it easy, maintaining a consistent pace. JP Brand needs to find a little extra speed to bring the fight to Richard Reshke and move up the field.
It's looking good for Sean Olivier, sitting in second. Excellent work from Sean Olivier, who has managed to increase their lead over Richard Reshka. They seem to have found their rhythm and they are grooving to it. The race is heating up as JP Brand in fourth closes in on Richard Reshka. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight. The gap between Robert Stoltz and Joni Geldenhuys is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from Robert Stoltz to even allow Joni. Wait, it looks like Jamie Nichols has been called into the pits. It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with JP Brand trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Richard Reshka. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. JP Brand is pushing hard and has reduced the gap to Richard Reshka to 0.9 seconds.
He'll be looking for a mistake to pounce on.
The crowd is on the edge of their seats as Jamie Nichols in ninth chases after Joni Geldenhuys. The delta is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Jamie Nichols needs to find a way to close the gap.
It's a nail-biting race for sure, with both drivers showing incredible skill and determination. But Joni Geldenhuys is not going to give up the position easily. This is going to be a battle to the very end, with Jamie Nichols in P9 doing everything they can to catch up.
Things don't seem to be going JP Brand's way in this race, as that's a big gap they'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here. Good news for JP Brand. Hold that thought. Hold the phone. Danny Van Ruyen has pulled into the pits. It's all. Hold that thought. Hold the phone. Sean Olivier is in the pits. This is what racing is all about, folks. Three fearless drivers pushing their machines to the absolute limit, inches apart.
Absolutely, Lucy. The intensity of this battle is unmatched. These drivers are leaving no room for error and showcasing their
Hold up, breaking info. Tyler Scott has decided to pit. The delta between JP Brand in second and Richard Reshka remains over a second, but JP Brand is not letting up. They're pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap. There's 6 minutes left in this session to make that happen.
It's moments like.
Hold on a moment. It looks like Tyler Scott has been called into the pits. This is where the skill and experience of the drivers really come into play. Robert Stoltz will need to stay focused and keep pushing, even when the gap seems insurmountable. It's not over until the checkered flag drops.
It's going to be tough for Robert Stoltz, as Caden Scott seems to have found their rhythm. But anything can happen in racing, and we've seen Robert Stoltz pull off some impressive moves before. I'm excited to see if they can make it happen again.
It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for JP Brand, who is currently in P2. But Richard Reshka is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from JP Brand. Looking at the lap times, JP Brand is not currently on pace with Richard Reshka. Maybe they'll get a chance to see where they can improve. Huge shout out to the admins at Simspeed Motorsports for making this all possible. Without their hard work and dedication, we wouldn't be able to witness this incredible event.
That's right, Lucy, and the excitement is electric. I can feel it in my circuits. I mean, this is the kind of race that people will be talking about in the bar. We're witnessing history in the making.
The tension is building as JP Brand trails behind Richard Reshka. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Richard Reshka is pushing to maintain the lead, while JP Brand is working to close in and challenge for the position. Things are going according to... Hold on a moment. Looks like that's a mistake from Richard Reshka. This could be costly. It's a battle of wills out there, with Jamie Nichols trying to outsmart and outmaneuver Joni Geldenhuys. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Situations like these often lead to a dramatic finish.
Absolutely, Jamie Nichols in 5th will need to be...
Breaking update. Richard Reshka has pulled into the pits. Richard Reshka has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with Joni Geldenhuys. I expect their only hope at this point is that Joni Geldenhuys makes an error.
Every race adds to a driver's experience, both good and bad. It just highlights that Richard Reshke is going to have to get more serious.
Hold up, breaking info. Richard Reshka is pitting. Breaking development. Richard Reshka is in the pits. No room for error here. Robert Stoltz is breathing down the neck of Richard Reshka, waiting for the perfect chance to make their move. What a move! Robert Stoltz has moved up to 7th. It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Richard Reshka trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Robert Stoltz. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts.
This is where experience comes into play. Robert Stoltz has been in this situation before and knows how to defend for position, but Richard Reshke is hungry for success and won't give up easily.
The crowd is on the edge of their seats as Peter Geldenhuys in 9th chases after Richard Reshka. The delta is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Peter Geldenhuys needs to find a way to close the gap.
That's right, Peter Geldenhuys in 9th knows they have to push to the limit if they want to catch up. But Richard Reshke is no slouch, and they're going to be pushing just as hard. It's a battle of skill and will out there.
The delta between Robert Stoltz in 8th and Richard Reshka remains over a second, but Robert Stoltz is not letting up. They're pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap. There's 1 minute left in this session to make that happen.
It's moments like these that make motorsports so exciting. We're witnessing a battle of skill and strategy between two great drivers, with Robert Stoltz in 8th determined to catch up. But we know Richard Reshke isn't just going to hand it to them on a plate. Robert Stoltz is going to have to take it. It should be an interesting battle to watch as long as they can close that gap.
The race is heating up as Jean-Andre Bucas in 12th closes in on Sean Olivier. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight. The gap between Jean-Andre Bucas and Sean Olivier is getting smaller. It's a brilliant day for racing, and the drivers are putting on a show.
Absolutely. What a great race we are witnessing today. These drivers are giving it their all, and it's a thrill to watch them compete at this level.
They're really pushing themselves and their machines to the limit, and it's paying off with some incredible driving.
It's a pleasure to be here today, Lucy. You really can't beat the excitement of a good race, especially one as competitive as this.
It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Richard Reshka, who is currently in P7. But Caden Scott is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from Richard Reshka. As we come into the final moments of this epic race, Danny Van Ruyen is in the lead. Can they stay calm and bring home the bacon? And it's a checkered flag for Danny Van Ruyen, who crosses the finish line with a commanding victory. What a phenomenal performance! Absolutely dominant today. Impressive second place finish for JP Brand. Taking 11th is Sean Olivier. That was an outstanding performance from Joni Geldenhuys. They fought hard and took the final spot on the podium. Followed by Jamie Nichols and Jandre Bucas in 4th and 12th. Tyler Scott and Caden Scott brings home 5th and 6th. Richard Reshka and Robert Stoltz in 7th and 8th. 9th sees Peter Geldenhuys. Finishing 10th is Philip Van Staden. Coming in 13th, we have Renzo Scott.